Today we're going to give you the 10 best places to find local sourcing options for everybody, no matter where you are at. Hey, it's Don. Today we're going to talk about local sourcing options. Now, there's sourcing options no matter where you're at. You're just going to have to dig into what's local to you. We're going to give you 10 of the options that I would always recommend looking for. Now, thrift stores and such forth are always good sources for many people, depending on where you live. Around here, they're not, but in most cases, there are. Now, the best place to look to find thrift stores is your phone book, believe it or not. In the phone book, you're going to find secondhand shops. Don't just look under thrift store. Look under secondhand, look under consignment, and look under pawn shops. All of those sorts of places can be good places to source. In the phone book, you will also find places like book exchanges, secondhand book swaps in general, used book category. Those are all places that you can check out. Now, I know many people may think that a bookstore may not be a good source, but believe it or not, even some of the bookstores don't go through paperbacks and things like that they have to scan. The quantity they have coming in many times is massive, especially if it's a small one, and they may not realize that some of those ratty-looking or cheaper-looking paperbacks and other books without barcodes may carry a decent value. They may not even know how to research them. Around here, there is a bookstore that you can still get stuff like that at. So that's always a good plus, I would say. Now, obviously, Craigslist is good. Now, if you don't know Craigslist very well, you can actually set up a search. So when something is listed in your search criteria, you will get an email message stating, hey, this is up, you want to go check it out. Craigslist can still be safe. I would never recommend meeting at some out-of-the-way location at night or anything like that. We usually meet in front of the police department here in town if I ever do anything on Craigslist, or at the library on a time when it's open and there's people there. Those would be the two best, I guess, recommendations for meeting off of Craigslist. Sometimes they can mail them to you, but mostly Craigslist is local as well. These days around here, Craigslist isn't very good, but people send me things all the time and find stuff on Craigslist very regularly. Now, another option would be Facebook. Facebook does have a bunch of stuff on there. Again, around here, for whatever reason, I'm not that lucky, but I have checked in Facebook on other areas and other parts of the country, and I do see quite a bit of stuff that I probably would be interested in. It just depends, I guess, on where you're at. Everything is regional that you're doing, but these are all options that do work. They will find you some revenue. They will find you enough inventory coming in if you're diligent and you check these things constantly throughout the day. Something on Craigslist around here, if it is a good deal, it's usually gone like in an hour or less usually. It's a lot of records or a lot of something like that. Almost immediately, somebody's already calling about it. Just FYI. So you got to be quick, you got to be on the ball, and you got to be diligent and do it constantly. Now, one many people miss is local newspapers. Newspapers can be good for many different things. People will offer stuff for sale, obviously. Garage sales are listed there, estate sales, but they also have property auctions and things like that listed in there as well. So it's always a great source to find stuff like that. Now, don't just look at your main newspaper in the town. Most towns have county newspapers, and you can usually get a couple from local counties that will have other stuff in it that will be useful as well. Around here, there's entertainment ones, too. There's some about town newspapers and mags too. So all of those sorts. Around here, there's probably around 10 that are published every single month that do have things for sale just here within, say, a 40-minute drive. So all of those sorts of things are good. Not just, as I said, the local newspaper. So look outside the box. The library around here usually has oddball magazines and newspapers like you would want to find. That's a good source to find some of these. You don't have to buy, you don't have to subscribe to many of these. Many of them are given away for free, or you can look at them at the library. Now, a good site that you can use to find local auctions is auctionzip.com. Auctionzip.com will show all of the local ones. You can sort it by where you are at. It will give you a range around you, and you can go as far out as you need to see what is available. There's almost always a ton of pictures for each one of the auctions in there to give you an idea. It will list the auction site and all other information that you will need to know. Number one thing on there is the phone number to the local auction, so you can ask when preview time is. You can also ask if there's other things they're not showing that you may be interested in, or you can call them and have them put you on a list to call if they get some things in. Some of them are good about calling back and others are not. The good auction houses are the ones that keep a list and call everybody on that list to tell them this stuff is going to be at an auction. It's easy these days. You can just pop it in the computer and do a quick pull up from anybody who's interested in a specific item. It's a no-brainer. I don't know why many others don't do that, but those are always good places. Auctionzip.com works great. Another one is estatesales.net. It's similar to auctionzip.com, but this is estatesales.net. And this will give you all of the local estate sales. Again, there'll be a ton of pictures. You can sort them by local, so you can do within a certain range from where you live, so you can kind of pan yourself out. They will list regional ones. There'll be some specialized ones. There'll be some that are promoted, that somebody paid extra money to have it popped up to the top of the page. The ones that I look at are the ones that usually have a ton of photos, or they only show a few photos, but it looks like a massive sale. Those are usually the best ones, but using those two sites have done us a world of good in the past. Usually we know right where to go these days with estate sales. If you're local, you go to the local ones, you have your name on their lists as well. Any business that you can get your name on a list, if they don't do a name on a list or have a list at all, I would constantly call them back and ask them. I would set up a chart on the wall and call each one once a week or whatever interval they get stuff in to see what they have. Many times you'll find out that sometimes they don't advertise everything because some of these sites you have to pay to advertise. So some of them are cheaper than other ones. That comes back to the phone book. You will find estate sale companies in there that may not advertise, but you again can get on their mailing list. Any estate sale company that's registered with estatesales.net usually has a website and an address, and you can save it and go constantly back to them as well. Now, just a common Chrome search in your local area. Type in your town, type in liquidation sale, secondhand, all of that sort of thing into just a Chrome search. You will be surprised at what shows up. Sometimes there's small sites you've never heard of, and you will find stuff for sale like on a local posted board or something like that, local Reddits and things like that as well too. It will show you a bunch of other things that you may not have seen. I have found some things just by doing that. Now, you can get creative with your wording. You can get creative with a lot of things. Sometimes it's pulling information from like someone specific, their own website, like a antiques mall or a vintage store or something that has their own website that's running a sale. Sometimes that information will pull up. I have found shops that I never knew existed within a 20-mile range by accident, just by doing Chrome searches for random words about collectibles for sale. Obviously, put the town and the state you're in, the word for sale, and then start popping some names, some numbers, any kind of thing you can think of, a type of antique, a type of collectible, whatever you can think of, and you would be surprised sometimes at what does come up. Now, another one many people just don't pay attention to are police and sheriff auctions, county auctions, city auctions. Any of that sort of thing are places that I would honestly recommend going to. Many times when a city does auctions, they're for maybe old equipment. I'll give you a perfect example. The city auctioned off some of the school that closed down, and there was a ton of 1940s and 50s bubble front standard library style clocks that went out. Dirt cheap stuff that sells for hundreds of dollars a piece in all working order, nice condition. They've been mounted, taken care of. There were some brass ones in there. All sorts of things like that show up. Books occasionally show up in mass quantities. Dust jackets, as I've talked about before, a lot of things. Even Eames era chairs many times can show up at places like that. So I always check for sales like that. It's not just cars that you will find at auctions at those sorts. It's all kinds of different things. So I always look into it. If it doesn't list everything or it says and other items or something, I always call. Your best response to any of these, if you're curious on what's going on with the sale or what might be there, is to call somebody. Don't ever be afraid to call somebody trying to find out if they have something you may want. You may spend a lot of time doing it, but chances are you're going to be able to save yourself at least drive time finding out if something's there or not, or possibly find yourself something good by just simply asking. Just like when you go to these places we're talking about or looking at them, asking. Many times I've been to sales and people won't have something out, but I asked, and oh yeah, we have this here. I didn't think it was worth anything, or I didn't know anybody would have it, or I forgot to put it out. I hear that all the time. I don't care where I go, I always ask. Just like if I see something behind the scenes at a sale, I ask them, hey, is that for sale? Is that for sale on the wall? Is this for sale? I ask people all the time. All they're going to do is tell you yes or no. Who cares if they tell you no? Just move on if it's a no. Now, another good one are local colleges, universities, and libraries. They all run sales at some point, at least the ones around here do. A library book sale they have quite often. Now, many people think the books that are there are just going to be ones that are worn out from the library itself. That's usually not the case. What I have come to find out is that people donate books to the library all the time. Many times the books will never be marked for the specific library or library system or even college system, and they'll just be sold as is. They were used to raise money or funds is basically the gist of it. So I don't ever assume that with book sales. If you're a book scanner too, one other thing to think about is many of the times they will make sure you can't get Wi-Fi or cell access in the building, so they don't want scanners. And they'll even usually put a note, hey, no book scanners. So just remember that. You can do some scanning secretly if that's what you want. You can download all the data to your phone, so you do not need an internet access. There's 2, I think, apps now that do it. So there are other options. There's even a little handheld device that will hook onto your phone that you can remove and carefully scan items. It'll just give you an audible beep if you want. So there's ways around many different things, but the library and college sales around here are good. One of the colleges around here has a record sale, and some really good records have shown up there. If they have a copy of it, they get rid of most of the extras. So that's the case. Colleges, as I said, books and things like that show up quite often. Even some of the equipment the colleges will auction off, computers and things like that. And the last one are local wholesale businesses. You would be surprised at how many local wholesalers there may be in your area, things you may never have thought about. Since you're local, they may be willing to work with you better than other ones. They know where you live. You've got some connections. You can pop in and talk to people. You can see the merchandise and things like that. You can offer trials and things like that. Getting into wholesale can be a windfall for some people. You can do extremely well if you're careful and are very selective on the items that you mess with. Many times we've been able to work out local deals with businesses, more so than anywhere else. Again, because we are a local, it does help. You can see the merchandise. Usually you can see maybe even production, depending if it's a producer as well as a wholesaler. So those options are always very good. So all of those options you should be using. Going through that list, I could almost guarantee you are going to find some places you haven't seen, haven't heard of, that you can still source at. Many, many things there. Now, like with the phone book, churches are another place that you would want to look into. People wonder why would I say churches? Most churches will have a garage sale, a rummage sale. So there's many different options. The phone book, though, for local businesses, usually the best. Looking for under terminology-wise, like secondhand, consignment. Those are words many people just don't look at very often. But anyway, that's what I got for you today. Those should be places you can find local options for. Again, don't be afraid to call. Don't be afraid to get the no. Who cares if somebody says no? Just move on and call somebody else. Check out another place. Most of your research should be done before you leave the house, knowing where you're going to go, at least the business, the place, what they may have there as well. But that's what I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell all your friends.
ordinary troublemakers as long as they lived. But they returned from beyond the grave with superhuman powers, unleashing an unholy reign of terror that holds an entire community in the grip of psychomania. Psychomania.
Everybody dies, don't they? But some come back. How do the dead come back, Mother?
When you die, you've got to believe that you're going to come back.
Farewell, Mother! Have you kill yourself?
That's right! Off the bridge! I'm going! You can only die once. After that, nothing and nobody can harm you.
Oh, man, what are we waiting for?